Blue stones at Qaeo. Since the loss of Pachan and the others, mals no longer went to Nosnev, though they still traded with the Vamoths in their border. The festivities were limited to a few dance and songs, but wine was no longer served. Zav understood the sudden behavior of the mals that he respected in great length. He tried to pin down Pachan's murderers but found no proof of it for years, until one day 3 Vamoths hunting in the forest came to the cave where the bodies of Pachan and the other mals were buried. They saw a boar excavating the soils inside the cave. Tov, a young Vamoth, aimed his slingshot and killed the boar. The 3 tied it up to a long branch that they cut to carry the boar on their shoulders. As they lifted the wild swine from the ground, Tov saw some skeletons on the soil where the body of the boar fell and rested. They thought that the bones were from a large cat and ignored it at first, but when a crystal-like stone illuminated from the ground, reflecting blue radiance on the ceiling and the walls of the cave, it made them curious. Tov picked up the stone that was resting with the scattered bones, and the torch that he was holding provided further luminance that magnified the piece. He rubbed it with his clothes until the earth sticking to its round and smooth surface was removed and the stone's full radiance was revealed, filling the cave with soothing blue lights that reflected on their faces. The Vamoths looked at the soils once more and they saw another piece which half was protruding from the soil. Tov picked it up and cleaned it. Like the first one, it too radiated with soothing lights that mesmerized them all. The 3 thought that such gems could give them enormous amount of fortune for its rarity, since it was their first time to see such smooth and round crystal-like stones. They had never found such pieces in their land, but only popular gems that were wanted and traded at Bixar. The 3 excitedly went to Qaeo, a vast trading port in Bixar, and offered their new find to the stone-hungry Bixes. They were all thinking that the Bixes would pay more than the price they used to pay for some gems that they usually find at Nosnev. They offered the stones for 2 horses each, but the Bixes just laughed at the Vamoths, telling them that the blue stones were nothing but worthless, for it was unknown and there was no mark of it that told of its value. None of the Bix traders wanted it and they ignored the Vamoths, who kept on offering it even for just a goat. Laura, who was with her husband War, saw the stones. It wasn't sparkling as much, for the open and sunny sky hid its radiance, but when the Vamoths showed Laura how much glow it could emit by keeping close together shadowing the gems, Laura's eyes widened and asked War, her husband, to buy it for her. War knew Tov and the 2 Vamoths, Yivi and Siv, too well, for they were his regular suppliers for gems and stones. War was pleased seeing his wife in ecstatic mood, like a child peering inside her clapped hands as she watched the stones reflected brightly on her palms. War gave the Vamoths a generous horse for the 2 stones. The 3 Vamoths were in disbelief receiving a horse for their gems. They knew that War didn't mean to pay that much for the stones, and it was just his act of generosity and pleasure seeing his happy and cheerful wife. Inside the businessman's mind, he knew that such act to the Vamoths could earn him more loyalty, like the traders who benefited from his generosity as they looked for him first to sell their products before they offered it to the others. War made his fortune with his generous ways to the foreigners, especially with the Vamoths who searched him first for their gems that he usually bought at his own price. He was highly regarded and respected at Bixar, not only because of his generosity but also because of his riches and social stature at Qaeo, where he owned most of the trading grounds that he rented to foreign traders. Tov, Yivi and Siv returned to Nosnev in jubilation with their horse. The Vamoths regarded them with high respect, for any Vamoth who received a horse as a gift were believed to be blessed by their god, Omaj. A horse represented their god's embodiment, and anyone who had one was considered chosen by their god. The villagers marveled at the sight of the 3 with a huge horse behind them as they walked past their village to their homes. The thoroughbred from Bixar was different and non-existent in their land. It was huge compared to the horses that roamed at Nosnev. Vamoths who had many horses at Nosnev carried an enormous influence, which made Zav, and his ancestors before him, their chief. He had 88 that roamed freely in their woods, and most of them were tamed from the wild by his forefathers, while a few were given by Vamoths who wanted him continue his reign and leadership. Not one Vamoth had ownership of more than 2 horses at Nosnev, and for generations, the family of Zav ruled the Vamoths because of the horses that were marked as his. They loved and embraced Zav like his ancestors, for none of his roots took advantage of the privilege but instead treated their kind with great humility, compassion and respect. Tov, Yivi and Siv were asked how they had it. They told about the stones in the cave in Nosnev, but they also told that such were not the reason why they had a horse, but only because of War's pure generosity and their relationship with him. However, some of the Vamoths did not believe them, thinking that the 3 just wanted to keep the secret on the blue stones despite their insistence that there was no more in the cave. They told their fellow Vamoths that the rare gems they found were less worthy than the usual ornaments that they find in their forest, but they were not believed. They were forced to prove their story true by going back to the cave where they found the gems, hoping to find more of the blue stones to sell at Bixar. They were joined by a few Vamoths that included Hiavi and his cohorts, who heard about the 3 in the cave where they found the stones, the same cave where they buried the mals. When the Vamoths reached the cave, Tov, Yivi and Siv showed them where they exactly found the stones. The skeletal remains of a mal were scattered to pieces that the 3 told as a large cat Hiyavi knew who the skeletons belonged to, but Lei, another Vamoth, saw something that made him shiver. A piece of an engraved wooden ring was inserted inside a part of the remains. He studied the skeletons once more as his mind formed its pieces until it made him certain that those were not animal bones but the bones of a Mao. The very piece of wooden ring was his gift to a Mao who made his home and was amongst the lost Maos in their forest. The Vamoths were shocked at his revelation, including Tov, Yivi and Siv. They searched further inside the cave, dug every earth and its corners until they found sets of bones one after the other. They found the lost Maos. Hiyavi and his accomplices were quick, murdering all the Vamoths including Tov, Yivi and Siv, and buried them inside the cave. When they were covering the dug bones of the Maos, Higa, Hiyavi's cousin, saw the kind of sparkling blue stones that the murdered Vamoths told lying with the remains of the Maos. They looked at the other exhumed remains of the Maos and found the same sets of stones. They rejoiced at the thought of wealth with such a find. Hiyavi and the Vamoths with him arrived at Qaeo, where traders from Megathansha, Garadia, the Red Land, and Nosnev traded their goods. The very first sight of the blue stones carried by the Vamoths made the Bix traders and foreigners fight against each other in bidding for it. Each one was giving a price higher than the other. Hiyavi was surprised realizing that the blue stones had far tremendous value than what Tov, Yivi and Siv had told. Unknown to them, it was the kind of stone that King Asiv put a high value on in Megathansha when it was first seen by King Asiv as Laura's earrings. The usual Vamoth traders saw Hiyavi and they too were surprised at the offers of the rich Bixes, including War, who was bidding the highest each time. Almost everyone wanted a piece of it until Hiyavi offered it for 5 horses each. Many rich Bixes and foreign traders bid even higher, but all promised payment the next day, for they did not carry enough with them to pay for it outright but only their respective products and a few horses. Hiyavi sensed the high value and demand on the stones and raised the price to 10 horses but only offered it to those with ready payment. He wanted to return to Nosnev carrying his wealth at once. War, who lived near the port, had a large ranch filled with many horses and he got 5 of the stones while the other traders partnered with each other, combining their horses, even those that they used to carry their goods, for a piece of the stones. He gave 3 to the traders and held on in selling the remaining 4. He told the traders, however, that they would return in 3 days and the highest bidder with ready payment would get it. When the Vamoths received their horses, they felt hanging in the air as the horses followed them from behind while they walked through the large market towards the port, where a large ship was waiting for them to carry their goods back to Nosnev. It was a ship loaned by War to the Vamoths as part of his offer. The feeling of their new fortune enveloped the Vamoths, but Hiyavi's mind was thinking something else. He could replace Zav with what he had, he thought. The usual Vamoth traders who frequented Qaeo envied them as they passed. They asked where they found the gems, but their questions were just answered by Hiyavi's vile smile while thinking, "When you come back to Nosnev, I would be your new chief." They left Qaeo and sailed the Great River back to Nosnev together with War's sailors of Bixes. In the middle of the Great River 2 distinct ships headed fast towards them, and on its decks were armed Redths and Bixes, pirates. Figa, the leader of the pirates, watched Hiyavi at Qaeo. Vamoth traders who went to Bixa were always prepared against pirates. They sailed the Great River in groups armed with their poisonous darts. In the past, pirates attacked the Vamoths thinking that they can easily be overcome, but the latter always prevailed against them. Not only that the Vamoths were good at their poisonous darts, but they were also skilled in maneuvering their small boats to safety or to counter-attack the vile thieves of the Great River. Their marginal products added disinterest for the pirates to risk their lives in stealing from them, and these made the Vamoths free and untouched for years in sailing the Great River until the fortune of Hiyavi and the remaining stones he had invited the pirates once more to attack them. Hiyavi and his followers were not really traders who went to Qaeo by themselves and also left in haste by themselves. Figa realized this and planned the ambush of the lone ship. War's sailors tried to fight the pirates, but they were unprepared against the skilled mercenaries. One by one they died from the pirates' hands as Hiyavi and the Vamoths watched the pirates scaled their boat. They did not put a fight at the sight of the mercenaries but pleaded for their lives together with the wounded and the remaining Bix sailors with them. The pirates steered the boats towards their quarters while the Vamoths and the survivors with them were tied up on the deck of the ship. When the leader of the pirates, Figa, climbed onto their ship, the Vamoths saw in shock at how Figa murdered one by one the surviving sailors who were former soldiers and relatives of soldiers at Bixa, while the rest of the Bixes were killed by his pirates. The Vamoths watched the pirates unloaded the mutilated, decapitated and burned bodies of the Bixes towards the river while they started to collect their loots by ransacking every corner of the boat while the horses were loaded in another ship that sailed back to Bixa. The Vamoths shivered at the thought of dying from Figa's hands, who did most of the brutal killings, and when Figa glanced at them they began to pray to homage. "Where are the stones, Herr?" It's in my pocket." One of the pirates took the stones from Hiyavi's pocket and handed it to Figa. The pirate's eyes widened at the sight of the sparkling gems before him. "Throw them to the river and let them freeze." "No, please, we can get you more of the blue stones. We know where to find it." The pirates were about to throw a mammoth at the side of the boat when Figure quickly stopped them, hearing Heavy's words. Plenty of blue stones here. Of course. I am sorry. I forgot. Mammoths found these stones, here. How can I be so stupid to not realize that? TSK, TSK, TSK. I am rusting, am I? Figure's questions were directed towards his pirates, who just responded with laughter and smiles. So, you are going to tell me, here? Heavy's head nodded fast while giving a look at the others as if telling them to let him do the talk. The other mammoths knew that there were no more inside the cave, for they dug every corner of it. They let Heavy gambled for their lives. Yes, there are many of those stones, and we can lead you there. You will lead us, here? To where? Where the blue stones are, said Heavy, whose face was turning red. He knew one wrong reply and they would be finished. Figure just responded by bowing and shaking his head while giving his distinct and vile smile. When he raised his head, he grabbed Heavy's neck with his large hand and held him up in the air. The mammoth started to catch breath from the pirate's choke. You would like to play with me here? Let me ask you again. Where are the blue stones? Hold on. The blue stones were with the mouths at Zireplida. We can lead you there. Please, don't hurt me. We know how to get you there. Figure released his grip. Heavy fell flat on the solid deck, arm first, and he let a short scream. The frightened mammoths heightened their prayers for homage with their mind as they watched Figure bending forward one more time. Heavy was wincing in pain from a broken wrist. Zireplida, hair. What a name of a place. So gorgeous. And mouths. Who are they, hair? Heavy was still gasping for air, and though in unbearable pain from his broken wrist, kept his mind sharp. He knew he had to be, for it was the only way to survive the merciless pirate that they were beginning to see like the god of the devils. They live at Zireplida. There are many blue stones that they have. It is just at the south side of Nosnev. And you think you can make me believe, hair? It is after Nosnev. Meaning, you want us to cross your forest and be ambushed by the mammoths, hair? I am losing my patience with you. Figure advanced and pulled his bloodied knife once more. Heavy raised his hands in fear, trying to protect himself from an enraged beast before him, and pleaded with all he had. No, please. I am telling you the truth. The mouths have the blue stones. But you need us to get there. I need you, hair. Tell me, why do I need you, hair? I told you we can lead you there, safely. We will not be seen by the guards of Nosnev. We can use your boats so we will not pass the inside of Nosnev. We can sail to the south. Figure grinned darkly while staring at the mammoths. He ran the edges of his knife on his dark left hand. The mammoths watched in horror as the pirate cut his palm with his sharp knife that seemed to be nothing to him. Figure watched his palm where a small drop of blood began to form from the wound that he didn't feel. He turned it over and waited till the blood dropped on the wooden deck. My father was right, hair. Anyone will offer you the world just to save his life. Now that we know, tell me, why should I let you live now, hair? At this time, the pirates started to close in with drawn daggers towards the frightened mammoths. Each time Figure did his show with his knife, it was his signal for his pirates to finish the job, and Heavy sensed this as he gave one last attempt to save them by creating something from his head. Because, the south of our land, though no guards there, have many poisonous plants that you don't know. We know them and the safe path to Zireplida.